6:19 in Trinidad and Tobago. Before we get into our first discussion here from the Sugar Mill restaurant at the Mount Irving Bay Resort in Tobago, can't overlook the flowers. You notice, I brought it. I didn't bring it myself, but the staff here ensured that we had the flowers in place. The nice bright red Exora with the lovely green as well, and of course maybe the mix of the politics as well, the red and the green, the PNM and the PDP. But let's just try and get a business perspective on our discussion this morning, and maybe even a legal perspective as well from Martin George, who's involved with the Tobago Business Chamber, and no doubt is very well informed in relation to this issue, and of course he's commented already on this platform and others in relation to the 6-6 deadlock from January 25th and a potential resolution of that. Mr. George, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, Fazil, and good morning to Tobago and Trinidad.
And indeed, I like the way you've put the perspective, because we are broadcasting from Tobago. We do have you on the phone with us this morning, Mr. George. But as a Tobagonian yourself, I don't know which you would prefer to start with, from a business point of view, which might be more straightforward, or a legal point of view, given this deadlock and lots of debate about the resolution. Could I invite you to start from the business perspective and to wear that hat as we talk about how much this situation continues to impact on the business community, and indeed what are the realities on the ground business-wise for the business community in Tobago?
Well, Fazil, thank you, because it's always easier to speak from a business perspective than from a legal perspective, because there's this saying that if it weren't for lawyers, we will never need lawyers. So, the legal aspect is always a confusing one. So, from the business perspective, we must remember that the THA not only is the largest employer in Tobago, but it is also the source of many large contracts for many business persons. So if it is that this deadlock situation remains, and you have basically an executive council that is simply holding over, you may see that there is some crippling of business activity, in that some of the things that they may wish to get done would either be challenged from, even if not from a legal perspective, but certainly from a moral perspective. For instance, you'd recall that I was one of the first persons who made a call and said that, look, some of those persons who were holding over as secretaries, who had lost their seats in the elections, ought not from a moral perspective to be allowed to continue in their post, even though the THA Act does allow for it. But realistically, if you look at it from a moral perspective, how can you, having lost your seat, continue in the assembly as a secretary? There's still a question mark that I think people are raising in relation to the secretary for the Division of Quarries and Infrastructure, because he continues in his position, but the thing is, he has lost his position in the election. So therefore, when you look at these things, you recognize that, look, there are issues that are going to continue to arise. Notwithstanding that, presume, we always try to look on the bright side and look at the most positive outlook possible. There is definitely an increase and an uptick in the visits from Trinidadians coming to Tobago. So those who profit directly from that type of activity, I would say that there has been an increase in that type of business. Villa owners, I know, are saying that they are seeing an increase in business. Some of the smaller hotels and guest houses are saying that they've seen an increase in business, because people have nowhere else to go. The borders are closed, so therefore Trinidadians have to come to Tobago for vacation, because it's like your only escape. And we welcome them. We welcome visitors all the time, and we always say that, look, Tobagonians must understand primarily that Trinidadians actually form the bedrock of what we call a tourism industry. So therefore, it's never a question of, an antagonistic scenario. You must recognize that every Trinidadian who is coming here is a tourist in that sense and treat them as such because they actually are the ones that keep the industry going, particularly in times like this.
And I think people are looking forward indeed towards the end of the month, because during what would have been the Carnival week, it was pretty busy with trainees in Tobago. And from what I understand, there are a significant number of bookings already for that end of the month, because of course we have the spiritual Shout of Baptist Liberation Day on the Tuesday leading into the Easter weekend. So all of that is being put in place. Are you satisfied though, Martin George? Because generally you find that business people say, look, whether it's 6-6, whether it's 12-0, whether it's 8-4, whatever it is, business people have to do what they have to do, because you know what politicians give anyway. Are you satisfied that the business community is doing enough on its own, even in a situation of a heavy reliance on the Tobago House of Assembly? Are you satisfied that the business community, the hotel, the tour operators and so on are doing enough to attract even more people from Trinidad at this unusual time of COVID-19?
Well, for the minute that you feel that you are satisfied that you are doing enough, it means that you've begun to get complacent. And we've warned our members against any such complacency, in that you must always be looking to keep yourself on the cutting edge. So that's why even when you have scenarios where, say for instance, some industries from Trinidad may decide, look, they want to come and set up a branch in Tobago, we always welcome it. We always welcome competition, because that's what keeps us all sharp, that's what keeps us all on our toes. So even when there was the Sandals and Beaches idea that those hotels would come to Tobago, we were at the forefront of seeking to welcome them, because we said, listen, at the end of the day, yes, it's going to create competition. However, it's a scenario where when the tide rises, all the boats rise with the tide. That was exactly the experience that they had in Grenada. In Grenada, they were initially very opposed. The small hotels were very opposed to the Sandals coming there. And the small hotels now are the ones singing the praises of Sandals, because not only has it raised standards, not only has it raised the bar, it has brought international spotlight and attention to Grenada. So people who did not even know about Grenada, through the Sandals being there in Grenada, they know about Grenada now. And if they can't get a booking in Sandals, they're looking for another hotel for them to book in Grenada. So therefore you have that spin-off business. The quality and standard in terms of the delivery of services in the tourism industry has risen in Grenada, simply as a result of the standards that Sandals has set. So we always encourage business persons, and that's always our perspective. We are not afraid of competition in that sense, because we think that it sharpens us, it forces us all to retool, to rethink, to look at our strategies and say, hey, listen, all right, okay, if it is that this person is doing it this way, maybe I need to rethink how I am doing my business and see how I can now leverage my economies of scale to try and match in my own way. I may not have the same capacity as they do, but then in other ways, I can now make myself sharper, leaner, and stronger for business. And that's something we always encourage our members to do, because that's how you grow. We must never forget, because from an international perspective, BlackBerry, a company which got complacent by its own success. It became a victim of its own success, because they were so successful worldwide. President Obama was a BlackBerry user, and they felt, well, look, we were on top of the world and nobody could touch us. And then where's BlackBerry now? So that's an example we always look at, and we must always remember never to get complacent in business.
And Mr. George, we talked about this issue with Sandals and I take your point about it being of spin-off value, but we talked about the issue of process, and that's a different discussion as to whether or not there's this level of transparency. But I want to highlight the point that you raised about not being scared of competition. And I know they might cancel the show now and put us off the island, or put me off the island if I'm going to say what I'm going to say now, because the issue would be, are the people of Tobago, the working people of Tobago, really ready for real competition, which means being efficient, being on time, that when work starts at 8 o'clock, it starts at 8 o'clock, not 9:30. and that therefore, if you really want to be up to speed with the competition, the very fierce competition that is out there among our Caribbean neighbors for the tourism product, are you satisfied, Mr. George, that the working culture in Tobago is ready for that type of competition?
Well, Fazil, I would say it's a work in progress. However, there needs to be a whole lot more done from a leadership perspective. And I'll tell you why, Fazil. These are not things that individuals are able to change on their own from, an island-wide perspective. You need to have that leadership from the city. So in other words, they need to start focusing on developing that efficiency, that sense of understanding that, look, service in the service industry is not servitude. I think lots of Tobagonians still, are confused about that idea, and they still resort to the Eric Williams type of thinking that says, well, master day done, so therefore I'm not serving anybody. That's a totally different thing. It's not servitude. In the service industry internationally, persons make lots of money. They have a very good life. You interact with all kinds of people, and you recognize the value that you bring to that experience. But the point is, there needs to be some sort of leadership and guidance from the THA that they must take this on as a challenge. Barbados does that. Barbados has decided that, look, they are going to aim for excellence. So they have national programs going on. They have training programs going on. They have ads running all the time.
Mr. George, if you would allow me to interrupt, if you would allow me, because time is going by. I understand the point you're making about leadership setting the standard. But seriously, if I'm a business person and I realize in this case, for example, we talk in Tobago, that the THA dragging the tail on an issue, and because they're more preoccupied with 6-6, I'm going to leave my business to suffer. I'm going to get up and get, and I'm going to get up and get by winning over my employees to understand that, look, is either we up our game or I am going to lose out, which means you're going to lose out on a job. So why should I wait on the THA?
No. It's not just, no. When I say that to you, I'm not saying that business owners don't have the responsibility also. But I'll tell you where the challenge lies. Unless we start developing that culture and that thinking in terms of an island-wide perspective, and that aspect of it can only come from leadership. Think of Singapore, when Lee Kuan Yew, when he took power in Singapore, and he decided, look, he's going to change the culture of the people. People can change, but you have to have that guidance and leadership from the top. So it's not that business owners are abdicating their responsibility, but you must have that national effort, that island-wide effort. And the reason why I say that to you is that if a young individual business owner, you insist on certain standards and the culture and mindset of the workers has not started to change, you may lose workers, and because they may decide, look, I'm not able with this. I'm not accustomed to this thing of coming to work on time, and we have a more relaxed culture in Tobago. That's the kind of nonsense you hear at times. Be on Tobago time. I always ask people, I said, what on earth is that? I don't know what that is. Time is time. And the point is, we are always in an international market. We are competing. You need to understand that. When you look at how the other islands in the Caribbean, you look at St. Martin, you look at St. Lucia, you look at all those other islands and see how serious they are about tourism. We need to understand this is a global market we are competing in. It's not just a scenario of us sitting back and patting ourselves on the back and saying, well, we have seawater and sand and people will come. No, that has changed. That has changed a long time ago.
Mr. George, we'll have to leave it there for the moment, but I'm sure this is a discussion that we're going to continue at other opportunities as we really try to get many different perspectives in relation to so many issues in Tobago. Yes, politics because of the deadlock, but it's not just about politics. Are we always going to be people governed by what politicians say or do, or are we going to hold them to account even as we seek to advance ourselves either individually, collectively, business-wise, otherwise, and achieve that level of financial independence, which might actually scare the politicians that you don't rely on them for your own livelihood and indeed moving forward. Well, we're going to take a pause, but we're going to continue our focus from a business perspective when we come back after the break with Diane Haddad, representative of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. But even as we go to the break at 6:34, let's give you a reminder of the COVID-19 protocols about wearing the mask. Make sure and wear the mask properly over the nose and mouth. Keep a safe distance, at least 2 meters or 6 feet. Please make sure and sanitize all those hard surfaces, especially your cell phone, because you know everybody has a cell phone, and touching it up and all those sorts of things. And indeed ensure, please, that you always keep that safe distance and are mindful of these requirements in this time of COVID-19. Even with a vaccine around, COVID-19 is not leaving us anytime soon. We'll be back right after this.
For each other.